Thank you all for coming this evening. It's lovely to have you all here. This is our third This Is Us evening, and tonight we're going to be finding out a bit more about Janet. So thank you very much to Janet for being willing to have a chat with us. Janet, so just we'll go back to start at the very beginning. Can you remember what your first volunteering that you did was?
Okay, so I was thinking about this during the week and I'd kind of forgotten about it because it was a long time ago. I think it was maybe 20 or 30 years ago. I worked in Drumchapel Opportunity, and I worked with unemployed people going into training and education and childcare and different things that we offered as an organisation. And I met someone who worked for, I think at the time, it was what Glasgow Life is now, but a long time ago before it was Glasgow Life. And they took to do with adult literacy and numeracy at the time. So they were looking for tutors. So I became a volunteer as an adult literacy and numeracy tutor, which consisted of one evening a week going to Chapel Community Centre and just giving people a bit of a hand in terms of reading and writing and sums and arithmetic and things. And I did that for I think I did that for a couple of years. I got some training and then I just went along, and I'm thinking back, but I think it was only one night a week on a Thursday in the community centre. And that was probably the first time I did proper volunteering with adults, young people and adults.
Oh, wow. That would be quite challenging in a way. You don't know who's going to come in the door and what they're going to need from you.
No, you didn't. You got names of folk and you met folk and you just talked to them about their situation and what they wanted to do. And amazing how, I suppose, people, if you're reading all the time, you think everybody can do that, but isn't it amazing? Lots of people can't for lots of different reasons, and lots of people can hide that for a long time, that nobody knows that they don't have skills and numeracy skills because they find ways of going through their life without it. And that's a skill in itself because people don't want to disclose that. So it's quite a brave thing to do. I always thought that people come forward and say, well, do you know, I'd like some help with that, because not everybody wants to do that. So it was interesting. It was interesting times.
Yeah. So did you enjoyed it then? Was there anything sort of challenging about it? Or?
I think it's challenging because when you're working with adults, you're trying to speak to people as an equal and not sound as if you're their teacher. These people have come along voluntarily in maybe difficult circumstances. So there's a bit about trying to build up a relationship, isn't there? And not make them feel that they don't have skills, because a lot of people come thinking, I can't read and I can't write, so I must be really stupid. And that's not the case. So there's a bit about trying to build a relationship with them and get them to an understanding and just get them through some basic things.
And when you say
it was enjoyable, it was good. I liked it.
That does a lot, doesn't it? To help encourage you to keep wanting to do it. And when you say build a relationship, were you working with would you see the same person for a number of weeks, or was it just drop in that anyone might turn up on a Thursday?
Yep, they could come for a number of weeks if they were happy to do that and happy with what we did for an hour or so. Then they would come back another week and come back another week, which was good. And it was for some people and it wasn't for others, and that's okay. That's okay. But yep, I think that people got something from that, so it was worthwhile. It was good. It was good to see people progress. It was good.
Yeah. And so did that start you on a volunteering journey, or did you kind of maybe focus on your career or other things for a while after that?
I did it for a while, and then I worked for 11 years, I think, in Drumchapel, 11 or 12 years, and I got the opportunity to do studying and things. At the time they could pay for study, and so I was really fortunate. So sometimes if you were on a course that had to take residence, so as you kind of go through your career, sometimes some things have to give. So that was my main time for volunteering then, and then I left Drumchapel after 11 or 12 years to take up another job, so I stopped doing that, and I didn't volunteer for a wee while after that.
Okay, so let's we'll jump then forward to the children's panel, because I know you've spent a good number of years doing that. What drew you to join to volunteer for the children's panel?
Well, I was working in health and social care. So I still do that. I work with social work and health, and I did quite a lot of work working closely with someone who I still work with. She at the time was the head of children's services. So we did a lot of work together, working with obviously children, going through the system and various systems in social work. And although I didn't directly work with the children face to face, we did a lot of planning and performance and outcomes and different things in the background. So I knew the children's panel were looking for volunteers, as they are quite a lot of the time. And Jackie thought it would be good if I put my name forward for that. So I did. And she was a referee for me. So I decided to put an application in. And then you're interviewed and all those things you go through. And then I went on to the training. So there's quite a bit of extensive training. And then you become a panel member. So that happened, oh gosh, that was quite a long time ago. But I did that for almost 12 years.
Oh, well, that's
that off as a side panel member. They call it a side panel member, chair. So different things happen. You become a chair if you want to chair. Some people don't want to be panel chair members, and that's fair enough. Some people do. So yeah, that was interesting.
Well, I'll bet. So did you feel kind of ready for it once you say it's extensive training, but did that give you the fear, or did that help you think that you were ready to start?
I think the training's good, and you go and you observe panels so that you know what's happening. And when you eventually are part of a panel, the chair should and the other side panel members should support you because you're new, and that's what should happen. So I supported a lot of new panel members when they come on, when I had been doing it for a while. So you get support, and there's always somebody there that you can speak to, and you can go back and do refresher training, and there's also ongoing training that you have to do so that you keep learning and you feel supported. So there's quite a lot to it. So but it's very well set up, and you do work with a lot of people that will support you. So it's okay. Well, it was okay for me, I think. Yeah. I think I did it well enough that it was, yeah.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a real development, like a personal development opportunity if there's that much training and support going on.
It is, and it's a personal choice in that you can become a chair. So I didn't mind chairing, but a lot of people don't want to do that. So that puts people off, because people aren't used to, not everyone's used to going into a room and chairing a meeting. Not everyone's used to sitting in that kind of environment. And I had been for years through my work. So that was fortunate for me. So some people don't want to be chairs. And I think we need to remember people are volunteers. So there's a bit about not forcing people into roles that they don't want to take on. So a lot of people just stayed as side panel members, and they're just as important as the chair. That we all play an equal part, but the chair kind of has to conduct the meeting and stay a bit more. So lots of people choose what role they want to take, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. That was okay.
And so what's actually involved? Because I imagine it's a lot more than just turning up and sitting on a panel.
The thing that people, I think, find the most difficult is the papers. So there's usually 3 hearings in a session. They cut it back to 2 just before I left. And you get papers through the post a week before. You have to have them a week before. So you have to read all of those papers. And that's quite a big job. Some children have been in the system for many, many years. So there are lots and lots of papers. There's lots of background information. You're making a decision about a child's life. So that's quite difficult. So you have to be prepared, I guess, to go in and know the background and ask the right questions and support the decision that you're going to make. So it can take a lot of time, setting aside a lot of time. I was fortunate that I had asked not to do panels every week or every fortnight because I was working full time. There are some volunteers who aren't working and are happy to do more, but there's only so much you can do when you're working full time. But I was quite fortunate that what I was allocated, I could manage, so that was okay.
Did your work have to be flexible then? Because I would imagine the meetings would be during the day and that kind of thing. They had to let you off.
Yeah, yep. There used to be some at night, but they don't do that anymore. So either the morning or the afternoon. So I preferred afternoon slots, which meant if they went on, then I didn't need to go back to work. You didn't worry about, you were there in the morning, you had to go back to work for a meeting or whatever. So yes, because I'm employed by Health and Social Care, they allow you time off, paid time off. So that's a real bonus. Some people don't have that, but you can reclaim, I think, back if you take time off and your employer doesn't pay you. But because of the organisation I worked for, then that wasn't a worry for us. So that was really good as well. So that was a support.
Supported you
really
in that. And if you'd had a particular, well, obviously it's the children's panel, so all cases are going to be difficult, but with a particularly difficult one, or even just in general, how do you kind of unwind from that when you go home at the end of the day? How do you kind of leave that behind?
It's difficult. I wouldn't deny that. It's difficult because there's some children you see that you wish that they weren't in the circumstances they're in, but I suppose you have to think about some of the positive things that happen from that, and the fact sometimes that children are in the system and getting support and getting the help that they might not otherwise have got is a positive thing. We're always told in training not to dwell on things, but I think you're not human if you don't remember some cases that you came up against, but that's offset by all the positive things that happen. Do you know, you may see a child more than once and you see a child sometimes flourishing because they do have time out from their families and they get support, or their families find the support they need and they continue to be with their families, and you see real progress in a child, and that's a positive thing. That's a positive thing. So although there's negatives, and of course there are, and sometimes it's hard, there's a lot of positivity that goes on with it, and seeing children come through the system nurtured and loved and is a really, really good thing. And you know, social workers always felt that if they were mentioned, it meant that children were getting taken away from their parents, and that's not what it means. But that's the kind of old-fashioned way, I suppose, of thinking about it. But things change and things move on. So it's a bit about being supportive and making the children, the families aware that that's what you're there for.
So now you've had a bit of, you've gone through your 12 years of doing that. You've now had a bit of space since you finished, and then looking back, can you see what you gained from that, or how you grew and developed through those years and through those experiences?
I think you experience a different way of how the world is, if you understand what I'm saying. I mean, I always worked with communities, and I've always worked with lots of people to support them and the kind of lives that they have, and try and make them the best they can be. So it was a kind of continuation of that, but it was concentrating on young people and children, obviously. And I suppose I'm taking things for granted, appreciating how lucky you are, but you're able to give to other people and volunteer, and that was really important. And trying to, I suppose, you learn how to build relationships maybe a wee bit better with people, because people come into a panel really scared and not understanding what's going on. So there's a bit of tolerance and understanding of other people and how they're feeling. Do you know? And if you can do that in a panel setting, you can do that anywhere, can't you? So yeah. I suppose it was about taking away some of the positives and not just thinking it's overseeing about the negatives.
Yeah. And so what drew you to think that it was time to step down?
Well, I suppose in my job, I changed job. So well, I'm in the same organisation. I've been there 14 years, but I changed my post about 3 years ago, and it was more of a responsibility and a bigger job. than I had, which was big enough at the time when I think back. So there was a bit about concentrating on my new post, and having to take time out during your working day to go to the panel was quite difficult. So I decided after nearly 12 years that I could step back, and that would be okay. And, you know, you can go back, you know, you can go back and get refresher training, but I just thought at the time, you have to, I just think you need to give it your all. You need to, you know, make sure that you're prepared and you're going in and you're concentrating on what you're doing, and taking on another responsibility in my work. I just felt it wouldn't be fair. So I stood back and stepped down.
Yeah, no, that sounds completely reasonable. So just when you're speaking about your work there, you have had an interesting working life. So quickly,
Yes.
I know it's about volunteering, but we'll quickly have a look at that. We'll jump back because I'm interested in, a while ago, you used to work as part of the Castlemilk Regeneration Partnership, which sounds quite interesting. Can you tell us a bit about what was going on there?
Yes, and I'm smiling because Mary Miller's on the call, and when I saw her face I said, oh Mary, I was going to speak about you tonight, and I was actually, because that's where I met Mary a long time ago, nearly 20 years ago. I met Mary and John, and I was very fortunate to meet them so long ago and stay in contact with them, and they're good friends and taught me lots of things. So when I went to Castlemilk, in fact, Mary interviewed me. That just came into my mind. I forgot about that, Mary. Mary was on my interview panel. My God, I forgot about that. All those years ago. And when I started working at Castlemilk, and I went into the Social Inclusion Partnership, which at the time there was a number of social inclusion partnerships in Glasgow City, and we were responsible for allocating funding to the area, and my area was Castlemilk, and we had a number of projects, lots of fantastic volunteers and community projects. And Mary ran the Julie Peace Club at the time, and we funded that club, and all the good work that she did, Pat funded that. And I think I had worked in Drumchapel before that, and there was great community spirit there too, but Castlemilk at the time was just the right place to be if you wanted to understand about community work and volunteering and how much of a difference you could make in the community. I mean, it was fabulous. Just such a good time, and that made me really interested, I suppose, as well in the community and what we could do to help. And I was there for a number of years, and then the Castlemilk Partnership, as was the others, was coming to an end, and it was changing. It was becoming community planning, which is a whole different world. Yeah. But it changed lots, as things do. The world changes, doesn't it? But Castlemilk was a great place to work, and I think I learnt lots and lots of things there. As I say, I'd done community development before, but Castlemilk, when I became the manager, and having to attend and chair board meetings with elected members and councillors and community folk, who Mary will tell you, the Castlemilk community folk didn't let you away with a thing. If you weren't doing right, then they would tell you. They were always there and thereabouts. But it was a really good time in my life, and we had lots of laughs and lots of good times, but that was a great place to work, absolutely.
Well, it sounds like a very interesting and inspiring time.
It was difficult, because it was inspiring but also difficult, because we were going through, because we had been a New Life for Urban Scotland partnership, which was very grand at the time and had lots of money in Castlemilk. When I took over, just my luck, we were on a reducing budget. Oh, no. And Mary knows the heartache that came with that. So we had to then start reducing the money we were given to the community, which is hard. It's really difficult when you've got really good community projects and it's less money that you've got to give. But we managed it. So yeah, it was difficult, but it was good. But I had a lot of good support and a lot of good projects round about me, which was fabulous.
Okay, well, we'll jump fast forward again back to where you are now, and you're in the Glasgow City Health and Social Care Partnership, which just rolls off the tongue.
Yes.
So what is it you're doing there?
I work for adult services. So the post I've been in the last 3 years, I'm the head of planning for adult services, which sounds very grand. So that covers all the adult services in the city. And I also have a remit, a planning remit for the Northwest locality. So that takes in Maryhill and other areas, the surrounding areas. So I cover the Northwest as my location, and I cover adult services for the city and some of the planning for mental health across the board, which is Greater Glasgow and Clyde Board. So that's interesting too. It's a good job. It's exciting. It's quite challenging, but it's interesting.
Well, it certainly sounds it. But it does also sound quite stressful and difficult at times. What kind of motivates you to keep going on those days?
Well, I mean, I suppose the more senior you get, they say in an organisation, you get further away from what's really happening. But I think in health and social care, if you're interested, you keep that interest. So for me, it doesn't matter that I might be planning and strategy and I'm not meeting people anymore on a daily basis that use the services. But the end result is the same. We're all trying to make it better, aren't we, through health and social care? So we're all playing that part. And in terms of planning, the stressful bit over the past few months is because of the situation we're in. So we're obviously planning through COVID and to keep services going and what services need to be stepped down and stood up and what we can do. So that's been very different over the past few months. But then it's been the same for everybody, hasn't it? Our lives have become stressful and different. So we find a way to cope. So, and again, I've got good people around about me and I work with a lot of good people in social work and in health. So that always helps. People really care about each other and I think they care about the communities they're working for. So that makes it worthwhile, doesn't it? Because that's what we should be doing.
That makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
So as you look back over your volunteering and the work that you've done so far, can you maybe see any influences between influence from your volunteering into your work life or your work life into your volunteering?
Well, I don't know if I've made a difference to anything, but I think people have made a difference to me. Because when you volunteer and you see things from the other side, absolutely, it's fascinating and interesting. You take things away from that and you always remember the people that you've met. And I think the work I do, again, although I do have some direct contact with communities, because in the Northwest, I manage the community engagement officers, one of the girls in my team. So we obviously have still got that connection with the community. We've got forums set up in the community and we organise that for people that are interested in health and social care and how it works and who want to get involved. So there's still that connection and I find that really quite interesting. And I still can go to meetings and speak to local people. But I suppose it's experience, isn't it? And it's life experience and you don't forget what you've seen and what you've learned and take it with you. So, and you hope that people remember you. I don't know if they will, but you just hope that maybe
sure
somebody's met you and thought, oh, she was interested. He was interested in what I did and made a bit of difference. That would be good.
I have no doubt that plenty of people remember you for the right reasons, Janet. Well, because you certainly made an impact on us, a positive impact on us in Maryhill Parish Church. Can you tell us how you came to get to know us?
I think it was easy to get to know people because there's a lot of good people around. And interestingly, again, Mary Miller, you're featuring again tonight, Mary. It was Mary and John that introduced me to Stuart Matthews because I lost my mum, so I needed some support. And they introduced me to Stuart and told me all the good things that were happening in Maryhill Parish Church. And Mary and I used to talk about you all before I had met you. So that was positive. And I started to come to the church. I hadn't been to church for a long time and I started attending. And it's not difficult to get to know people in Maryhill Parish Church because in the main all the people that I've spoken to or have come and spoken to me are easy to get to know and really nice people. So it wasn't difficult. So Mary started me on my journey. And as I said before, I think Jean Mackenzie spoke to me first, which was wonderful and made me feel really welcome. And then Muriel wasn't far behind her. So once you speak to Jean and then you speak to Muriel, you don't get away, do you? There's no escaping. You're just
in the nicest possible way. No, you don't.
So,
we're very grateful to them and for Mary for sending you and keeping you our way. Because once you've come and joined us, you've thrown yourself into life here at Maryhill, and there's no small thing is that you took on being Safeguarding Co-ordinator. which it makes it a very important role in making volunteering possible for everyone in the church. So what is it that you've got to do for that, and why is safeguarding like an important role to have?
But I think, well, it was important for me, again, because I had my background is in health and social care, so there was a bit of an understanding about why it's important. We've got safeguarding plans where I work, etc., as most people is, and safeguarding, as we know, child protection, that's everybody's business, and we should all play a part in that. So I thought it was the right thing to do if the post was vacant. So I suppose it's an important role in that you're making sure that we go through the proper processes and the proper channels if someone wants to volunteer. Because we're volunteering with community people, there can be vulnerable people and children, so we need to make sure that all our systems and processes work, and people go through those systems and are approved to do what they need to do in the community. And if anything comes up, if there's anything happens, if there's any incidents, then the Safeguarding Co-ordinator has to be involved in that and speaking to the panel, etc., so that anything that isn't quite right gets sorted before it goes any further. But in the main, in the past couple of years I've been doing it, touch wood, it's all went smoothly.
It's all went smoothly.
We've managed to get people through the system.
You do, you bring a great efficiency to the role, and I'm very grateful for your work in that. Back pre-lockdown, I was regularly sending you PVG requests, and all sorts of problems arose, but they were never a trouble. And you won out in the end.
No, we have a system. Listen, I'm a planner at heart. If you've got a plan, you're all right. I own it, it'll be fine. Always fine. So no, it's been good and it's been interesting, absolutely. And I think because you see the good work that all the volunteers do in the church, and you think, well, if you didn't get this bit sorted at the beginning to allow people to do it, then how would we move forward? So no, it's really enjoyable, and it's good to see people. They feel a wee bit nervous and they get their forms, they're all passed and everything's good and they're good to go. And that, that's a good thing as well, isn't it? That they feel part of it all. So no, absolutely, I've really enjoyed doing it. And I've obviously not been doing a lot during COVID because it's changed. But hopefully we'll pick up again and we'll be good to go. Yeah,
we look forward to that. And so that's a very formal role, that one. That's a very definite position that you've taken on. But you do a lot of other volunteering in the church that wouldn't always be considered volunteering. Sometimes it's just people, it's just what I do. But you bring lots of the ladies to the church, and when we were able to have events and so on, you made sure that they could get to all kinds of events. How did you get started doing that?
Well, I was thinking about that too, and how we ended up taking people to church. And I suppose it came about, Muriel and Margaret will remember that when we stayed behind for a cup of tea in the church, Muriel and Margaret were always rushing to go on that bus that they had to go and get. And sometimes they couldn't even finish their tea because they were rushing for the bus and trying to get out the door, and it just caused real stress and anxiety. So it took a bit of a sad thing for us to pick it up, because Muriel had a fall on the bus, remember Muriel? So she couldn't manage to come to church because going on the bus was a bit much for her. So on a temporary basis, I'd said, well, we'll come and get you. So we started to take Muriel and Margaret. And Margaret kept saying to me, this is only temporary. We'll get back in the bus, Janet, it'll be fine. And I was saying, no, you'll know, it's fine. No, we're taking you now, it's okay. And we ended up just taking them longer term. And why would they get the bus when I can take them? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And then about a year or so ago, Muriel asked us if we could fit somebody else into the car, and of course we could. So we started to bring Betty Wiley. So our band was growing, but equally well, it's not just us. And I know that if we can't take someone, if we're on holiday or if something happens, then Jane will stand in for me very admirably. And Jane knows that if I can't do something one day, then I'll stand in for her and take Jane to church. So it's an all-round affair. We all try and help each other, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, it's a wonderful family setup that we've got there. And well, speaking of family, you're very much a duo with Stuart helping you, and I know that the lady said ladies are very appreciative of soup in particular. Muriel sings
Oh,
the
absolutely.
praises of Stuart's soup all day long, and they get little deliveries. I know that's very much appreciated.
Well, I can't take any credit, Iona. I can't take credit for that because Stuart absolutely makes a soup. He's been known to make a roast dinner, his idea, so that's up to him. He's the cook, so I can't take any credit. But he enjoys doing that, and I just think if it means that somebody gets a wee plate of soup, there's nothing wrong with that, and it puts a smile on people's faces, and I always think that's a nice thing to do.
It's a very nice thing to do. And did you ever think when you came along with Stuart at the beginning that you would both be getting so involved in all different sorts of things?
No. I think people think I force him to do it, but I certainly do not. He does it of his own volition. But no, I didn't think that. But then I think you don't appreciate what it takes to get people to church and run that whole church and all the things that happen in the community. So if we didn't have people helping, then you couldn't do it, could you? And I would like to think that, if I needed help and I couldn't get somewhere, that somebody might think, oh, well, we could help you. So I think that'd be a nice thing to do as well. So no, I don't know why we do it. We just do it because I think it's the right thing to do. Nothing wrong with that. So we'll keep on doing it for as long as we can.
Well, we're very grateful. We're very grateful. And you're picking up ladies and delivering soups and running this and that on top of your work and everything, and then all this other volunteering and whatever else that you've got in your life to fit in. How do you fit it all in? How do you find time for everything?
Well, it's all right. I think you just find the time because you need to find the time. And it's mostly at the weekend we do those things. So during the week, yes, I'm working, and yes, you're tired, but I don't do a lot of things during the week. So at night time, I try and not do so much, unless there's something like this on, or if somebody asked me to go out during the week to do something, of course I would do it. So it's really only the weekends. It's not, I don't think it's asking too much. I don't think we do anything above and beyond that other people don't do.
Well, I'd say you definitely do go above and beyond, but I appreciate your sentiment. So just as we come to a close there, and we think about the sort of impact that volunteering has on your life. You think that you don't go above and beyond, but what would you say to somebody who's considering volunteering and starting volunteering?
I think it's a really good thing to do, and there's lots of different ways to volunteer. And of course you can do it through the church, but through my own organisation, there's ways of volunteering through the health board and through social care. As I mentioned before, we have a public engagement forum in each locality. So our team cover the Northwest. So that's where local people can come along to meetings and to get-togethers to talk about health and social care services, to allow them to have an input and to have a say and to find out what's happening. We get people there either by taxi or public transport and reimburse their fares. There's usually a lunch or a cup of tea, so people aren't out of pocket, but it's a bit about learning more about your local services and having a say. And again, people can be very vocal about what they want and what they don't want, so anyone can get involved in that. And that's a good thing to do. We also have volunteers in some of the hospitals at the information points, when people go in looking for where to go and how to get to places. And we have, certainly in the Northwest, up at Gartnavel, there's a gardening project, and people help in the hospital grounds with gardening and growing vegetables. So there's quite a lot through the organisation I work for people to get involved in, which is either for people who have time in their hands, but I think it's also good for younger people or any age who may want to get back into work and employment, because you get really good skills. And we'll certainly, from our point of view, our organisation, like many others, provides training and skills for people to support them. So it is a really good thing for people who may want to get back into work, as well as people who just have some spare time but want to get involved in their community. So I think there's benefits from that, as well as the volunteering for the church and other places. I think most people would find it worthwhile, I'm sure.
Yeah, lots of benefits there. So just finally mentioning the church, is there anything else that you can see that the church should be doing or encouraging people to do in what continues to be a very difficult time?
It is difficult, Iona, but I think we've been very lucky in the fact that you and Stuart and Jim have been doing the Zoom calls and coming up with ideas of keeping everyone together. And yes, it takes us all to play our part in it, but the fact is, I think you've led us really well through that. And I'm not sure what else you could do during these times that you haven't done. You know, we've had our spring fair, we're having a Christmas fair, we're even having a nativity. Who'd have thought it? So there's lots of things going on that you think, that's really good. So I can't think, maybe I'm not imaginative enough, I don't know, but I think what's been going on has been really good. And I think if we continue to do more of that, then you'll have people following you, which is a really good thing, until we can get back to normal, whatever normal might be. But I think we've done really, really well in comparison to some other institutions and organisations that haven't coped as well. I think that it's been really, really good. And I personally don't think you could have done much more than you're doing.
Well, thank you very much for that, Janet. And thank you so much for all the things that we've talked about and more today that you do for us and so many other people. And thank you for being willing to have a chat with us tonight. I know you weren't convinced that anyone would be interested in it, but I think you've proved yourself wrong. So thank you very much.